Bum 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 bum. Yes, I know. And welcome. It is 4th of July at the time I'm actually recording this and broadcasting this. And I'm going to do one of the last two orcs for this whole little orc horde I'm working on. And it's going to be the shaman. Tomorrow night I'm going to make the captain of the spearmen. Speaking of, I tried to print the spearmen today, and when I print miniatures, I print the miniature and a little tower. So I should have an example of one of them that I didn't throw away. Yeah, this is one from a really short miniature. It's 6 millimeters by 6 millimeters, and I've got some cat hair. Yeah, 6 millimeters by 6 millimeters, and I make it just about a millimeter or two taller than the actual miniature. I was printing both orcs at once. The tower came loose. Meaning that right about the time I was hitting right about here, spaghetti. I cleaned up what I could and took off most of the supports, not all of them, just most of them. And what I discovered was that, yes, well, let me bring in the zoom. I seem to have found just the right size for, for simulating mail on an FDM print, and it's also reasonable size for even a SLA. So I just got to make sure I replicate that scale of mail, which is not to be confused with scale mail, which also came out looking pretty darn good. Now, like I said, we're going to be doing an Orc Shaman today. So, let me go ahead and send out some little notifications. Bing. And promote yourself. And I'm not going to bother with the Facebook group simply because I don't want to pester them too much. So let me go ahead. Actually, I do want to go ahead and go to the Reddit. Reddit. Bing. Okay, I'm going to submit a text file. This is a cat. This is a cat who doesn't need to be in my lap right now, no matter how much he wants to be snuggly. So I'm going to put him on the ground. Shoo. Shoo, little fuzzball. Shoo. Broadcast. If anyone's interested, for the next couple of hours, I'll be broadcasting the sculpting of an Orc Shaman. And submit. Okay, that should be about it. Now, do I have anyone in here that actually... it's only pulling up me. Might be another one of those quiet nights. Ralph? Yes, Ralph. Oh. What are you doing, you crazy furball? Right? Do you mind? Yes. Nope. 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 No. Okay. Here's a little trick that we have for dealing with little fuzzbutts like this. This, that you notice the cat suddenly saw me grab, is for breeze. Or, in this case, yeah. Sometimes it's others. You don't spray the cat. Do not spray the cat because the alcohol and the other chemicals in this can cause problems. What you do is you spray above the cat. And they go sprinting, so as the cloud kind of drifts down, they can be out of there. Oh, this is going to be a long night if he keeps doing this, especially when I get my tablet in my lap. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the actual sculpting. This, as I have mentioned many times before, is my maquette, my armature, so to speak. When pewter miniatures are being sculpted, or the modern plastics and resins, what they use is they use an armature made of usually metal wire. More, back, especially during the early days. No. Look at this. Anyway, they use a metal armature or wire armature and then sculpt around it with the putty. Nowadays, it's, a lot of them are sculpted the same way I'm doing them. But there's still companies that will actually have a metal armature that will sculpt it on. And a lot of these companies will have a standardized armature with places where spots for it to bend, so that all of the miniatures sculpted for this company will have a common look. I did a full video on this. It's on the YouTube channel. If anyone ever speaks up in chat, it'll show up the link to the YouTube channel. Some of you might be able to hear in the other room someone's watching the 4th of July thingy. Anyway, so I have this armature. One advantage to this armature over a metal one is that I've got different shapes I can make it take. Some of them mostly humanoid, some of them rather extreme, and then some of them bleh. Now what we're going to do is we're going to import the sergeant that we did the other day. The reason for this is we want something that's a little bit larger than the average orc, but not quite as big as a boss or even the sergeant. So we're going to take this guy and we're going to Z-translate him back a bit. Zoom into the front. Now when I go and I take him and I make him an orc, I'm going to only go a little bit, and then we're going to go partially towards the orc boss, and then make sure I go full orc. But he doesn't need to be quite as hefty as the orc bosses. So instead, I'm going to add just a little bit of elf. It'll make his ears a little bit longer, make him a little bit taller and thinner. And we have ourselves our basic shaman. Now, next thing to do is clothing and props. Now, clothing is a very vague term for this because it's just going to be something that gives us a basic shape to sculpt on and work with. And I've got the furball coming back. No. Anyway. So, first thing we're going to do, he's going to be wearing robes, so we need something that's going to cover down to most of his feet, which fortunately I have. That's going to give us a nice fill in the gaps around, between the legs and around the hips. The next thing we're going to need is his props. In this case, he's going to need a staff in one hand. Let's put the staff in his right hand. And we're going to move it because the position of the staff is based on humans and his proportions are different. And then the other hand also end up going to be moved. We're going to put an orb. He's going to be holding an orb. Now I go to the back view. And let's move this orb. Let's make it a bit bigger. Because... Alright. I also need to go ahead and move the joint for this. Alright. Just a real quick, let's see. 17.39 minus 10.96 equals divided by 2 equals plus 10.96. 17.17. That doesn't sound right. No, clear. I hit something wrong. 17.39 minus 10.96 equals 6.43 divided by 2 plus 10.96 equals 14.175. Okay. That is because we want to be able to scale this particular orb. And so we're going to inflate the scale until we're certain that it's filling that hand. Okay, good. Now we go back to the back view, but this time we're going over to the staff. And we're going to move the staff into there. And make sure it needs to come down just a little and over just a little. Okay. We can do the rest. Now, I'm going to expand the entire figure so I can pick all of these. This is our basic figure with its basic props. There's going to be a lot more involved by the time we're done, but this is just the basics. Okay, and wow, we've got 4 people in here. Go ahead and pop in and say hi and say something, because it'll help the Nightbot actually to start putting the links in chat and stuff. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to determine a pose for him. Now, he's going to be kind of an evil guy. So, it's going to be, like, tilted. His hand on the staff is going to be really high. If need be, we can make the staff larger. And he's going to be, like, down at the... So, what we need to do is, first of all, the typical orky legs. But he's also going to be kind of off-center because you always want those planes off-center. We're going to bend him forward a little bit. We're going to side to side like that. Now what's going to happen next, we're going to go ahead, we're going to just select the foot and bring it up a bit and then bend it up. that's not enough. That's brought him too high. And bend it down. Yeah. Now, what we have is we got one leg kind of crouched down, other leg, we're going to bring it in. It's going to bend backwards a little, and the foot is going to bend forward. We're going to go to the front view so that we can see the we're going to have to twist this a little, or side to side it. Yeah. We want the feet to be roughly even. And so we now take the right foot, or left foot, and we're going to side to side it. We're going to check the left view. We got to bend it because it's not good. We're going to unbend some of it and bring the leg forward itself, but that's too far back. Okay, and way too far. Okay, perspective view. That's how his torso and legs came out. Now this means that the chest and abdomen, I'm going to bend them both at the same time. I'm going to bend them back a little bit, too far, back, twist, and side to side. Okay. Because we want this to be a really exaggerated pose. We're going to bend this collar forward and down a little bit and twist it to make it easier for us to and then bend this side to side that way and twist it like this, and now we're going to Z-translate the staff. But that didn't do well, so we're going to scale it up a bit. Z-translate it up. Yeah, go back to front view because it's not easy to see how close it is. That should be good enough. Oh, negative 9.1. There we go. We want that absolute edge of the staff to be proper. Now, go back to perspective view. Let's double check the hands. Okay, the hands came out pretty good. You need to pull it just a little bit that way. Okay. Now, this arm, we're gonna really drop this shoulder some and go back to the back. Twist it. Twist this arm, and we're gonna pull it out a bit because we don't want it too close to the body. It'll make it harder to sculpt the folds and that on the robes. And there's going to be more than just folds on the robes. Bend outwards. Okay, so for the most part the body is ready. Actually, we need to twist this a bit more because we want to try and keep the staff in the same spot near that foot, because we want to keep it on the base. Okay, now we're going to side the neck and twist it. Then we're going to take the head, we're going to bend down and side to side again. And actually let's remove some of that side to side and give it more into the head, because it was starting to now let's twist it a bit more so he's pretty much looking at the orb. Now we're going to realize that we completely and utterly forgot the tusks. Now let's take these. Okay, that's good enough. Sorry about that, I bumped the microphone. Okay, so we have the orc tusks in place. Now his mouth is going to be open. Oops. But it's not going to be just open. It's also going to be kind of twisted and to the side, because he's a bit loopy. Let's go ahead and zoom in on the brows, and we're going to see what we can do with them to make them exaggerate how loopy he is. So we're going to take this one, we're going to Z-rotate it down, over, and up. And we're going to symmetry it from right to left. Okay, now we zoom out, and here is the basic shape of our Orc Shaman. Now there's so much more that can be done, but that would be mostly in the sculpting. For the pose, this is pretty good. It's nice and creepy. Does not look sane, and it looks kind of intimidating. Let's go ahead and let's twist this a bit more, and let's zoom that out just a little bit more. And there we have our orc, our basic Orc Shaman. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hide the tusks, the staff, and the orb, and the robe. And this is going to be our basic orc. So file, export. And I've got to export basically the individual geometries that I'm going to be sculpting on separately, with the exception of, actually come to think of it, what I can do is, see, the problem is, I pull up the wire. As you can see, the polygons are much smaller for the orc than they are for the robe. I can up subdivision level and then just export the whole thing. So export shaman body. Then I'm going to hide the body and the robe and unhide the staff, tusks, and orb. And then file, export, shaman props, and accept. And hello! Welcome, Baloo, and Nice to meet you, LGN Lanarchy, unless that's a new nick for someone I already know. Or if I know you from somewhere else under a different name. But yeah, now we got our basic pose, so we're going to come in here, and we're going to switch to ZBrush. Bing. And I'm going to import, give me just a second, the body. And while we're here, I'm going to fix a couple things with the maximum strength smoothing brush. A couple little, oh, that was too much. A couple little things. And a couple large ones. Again, a lot of this will end up being worked on when we actually come in and do the actual sculpting and everything, but while this is still a very low polygon count, it's a lot easier to mess with. Now, one thing about smoothing is that very often smoothing shrinks things. And I don't mean makes them smaller overall, I mean it makes them thinner. It thins them out. That's why I don't do anything like that anywhere near the hands. Anyway, we're going to go ahead. We're going to append another subtool, in this case, the props. So we import Shaman props. And this is currently our big bad Shaman. But I'm going to go back to the body and make the props invisible. And we're going to geometry. We're going to subdivide until where it says active points is somewhere between 1 and 2 million in that neighborhood. So 2.696. Now we're going to delete lower. When we zoom in, you notice how smooth it all looks now. Well, now we're going to go to Dynamesh. Set the blur to 0 and the resolution to 768. And Dynamesh. Bing! And the end result is 731,000 polygons. That's still a whole lot, but it's a lot less, and now they're all even, and they're all evenly distributed, and it's easier to sculpt on them. So, that's when it's time for the Wacom. Now, a lot of this that I'm doing, I don't know the specifics, but a lot of this is also in all the other various sculpting programs, whether it's Mudbox, or, hold a second, let me move this furball. Mudbox, Sculptress, even Blender sculpting has at least the basics of what I'm showing you. So you should be able to translate a lot of what I'm doing to those other programs. Right now, all I'm doing is I'm going over areas that were seams in the sculpt. With instead of using the stylus, I'm using the mouse, because the mouse always puts it at 100%. Every bit that I've got it set for. The stylus on my tablet is pressure sensitive and only does 100% if I go and fully push down as hard as I can. So if I know I'm going to need 100% for this whole bit, there's no reason to use the stylus. It's mouse time. And I don't mean Mickey. Because if I had anything to do with Mickey, then I'd probably be a lot richer than I am. Wouldn't that be awesome? And one of the things I'm doing is, as I'm doing this, once again, you'll notice I'm blending in the bottom. Now, I'm not going to do that around the feet. Because around the feet, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to build up wrinkles like they're poking out from under the... Okay. And here we have our basic geometry. Now, let me smooth this out. One of the things I'm going to do right now, I'm going to stroke, and I'm going to lazy mouse and turning off lazy mouse. I'm also going to move the intensity to about 9, and then moving this larger. The reason being, I'm going to pull this out here, and then try and smooth it out a bit. It doesn't need to be totally smooth, but the smoother the better. Back to the point where I'm going to shrink the mouse to try to help get rid of this particular wrinkle. Because I would prefer to have wrinkles where I place them, not where the vagaries of rigging end up moving them to. So we want this to be as flat as possible. Now, one thing about the smooth brush, the smaller the brush, the more it smooths, because the fewer the polygons underneath that brush, the faster it calculates. Alright, now for the most part, the only thing left to do is, now it's time to start actually working on the garments. So for example, before we do anything else, and then I smooth out this part of the belly, we're going to make the belt. Now this belt is going to be thicker than the average belt, simply because we're going to be putting almost a tabard underneath it. So I'm going to, that's about the size I want for the belt. Like most of my orcs, their belt's going to be a little high. I hit Control, and I can now select and mask off areas of the geometry. I hit Control Shift, and I can hide areas that I don't want to make. I want to make sure not to affect. And those areas are based on the body parts for when it was rigged. So this way I can draw in this belt and not accidentally catch the upper arm of the right arm. Now that I've got it, I go to extract. I want to extract 0.04. I extract. I accept. I draw out here in the open screen so that, and I hit Control Shift to bring it all back, and I draw out here to turn off any masking that happened. Next thing is, I set the Dynamesh to 256, let a cat walk past me, and now I've got I don't even have to squeeze it sometimes, I just make the sound. Now we've got the basic belt. Now the sides can be brought in a little bit, but we're going to worry about that after we do the tabard. This belt, we're going to give it a subdivision because we want it to be a little bit smooth. And then we're going over here, and we're going to choose a new brush. I've used it before. It's the Insert Skullstone and Gemstone brush. And I set the depth to 3. I go here, and I just draw on a big old skull. And it looks okay, but it's a little distorted, so I'm going to go back to the Move Topological brush. I'm going to make it kind of bigger. I'm going to grab these teeth and bring them back, grab down here, bring it in. I'm basically going to bring this in So it's kind of bent around the belly and not sticking out like, you know. That is his belt buckle, is this giant skull. Let's shrink this. And while we got it, let's grab the center and pull it out. So that it's not blending in with the belt. There we go. That's better. And now we're going to grab down here and pull it out so that it's not blending in with the belt itself. Okay, there we go. That's much better. And that's his belt. Already done. The next thing we're going to do is sleeves, which means we go back to him. And we're going to hide the belt. And we're going to hide the belly and hip and legs, because we don't want them in the way. Now, what we're going to do is the sleeve on the upper arm will be coming down a lot more than the sleeve on the lower arm. It'll have shrunken up to where it's bending at the elbow a bit. I think you've all seen that happen with people wearing loose long sleeve garments. The one sleeve sides down to the upper arm and not the forearm because of gravity. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to have happen. But the sleeve on here, it's not as not quite as diminished. I don't want to use the word. The word's not hitting my brain. But it's going to become near. And I'll tell you the reason why we're doing this here in just a minute. It's so high up. There's a type of sleeve common in the medieval period called a hooplant. It's basically a conical sleeve with the end of the cone near the wrist. Comes down, comes all the way down. And that's what's often shown on wizarding garments. And I figure he'd probably have something similar. Now this, we're only going to come out thickness of 0.025. Extract. Accept. And when I draw out here, that's to turn off any masking that's already on it. By the same token, if I just turn these off, you'll see that the masking that I used to make the sleeves is still there. I don't want it for the future, so there it goes. Now, before we do anything else, we have to dynamesh it. Now, we're going to subdivide it, but only a little bit, and we're going to delete lower. No, you cannot get in my lap when I have my stylus here, my tablet here. Some fuzzbutts. Now we're going to go ahead and increase the size of the mouse, not quite that much for this arm. But basically what's going to happen is we're going to drag in and towards the arm the bottoms, the back ends of the sleeves. And this is because this needs to blend in with the arm at this point to help sell the illusion that this is a robe on his upper torso, along with what's on the lower body. So we are bringing in our sleeves. Oh, that's a bit too shrink it for this, because we will have a problem here if we don't. By the way, I hope y'all are all having a nice 4th of July. Because I'm having to deal with cats that are not that fond of fireworks, and a neighborhood that can't keep it straight whether it's fireworks or firearms that they're supposed to be setting off on 4th of July. Okay, that's mostly in. Now, the ends of the sleeves are going to come down a lot, to the point where I'm going to have to do them in pieces because of the way that it handles the moving. You see, this is not a solid piece of geometry. Instead, what it does is, when it makes this extrusion that ends up being the the sleeve, it goes in as an equal amount as it goes out. And there goes somebody firing off their pistols going, "Look at me, I don't need fireworks, I got stupidity." And make sure it's going to come straight down. Let's shrink this down a bit again and bring... Oh, too much. Blend this into the wrist. And then make it bigger. And just draw down. And make this a bit more obvious. We frame out and they look more like sleeves. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to divide it till it's got a couple decent levels of polygon hood, delete lower, nice and smooth. We're then going back up to subtool. We're going to drop, we're going to merge down. And now we have them in the same subtool, which lets us go in with geometry, and I said geometry, not fiber mesh, and dynamesh it once again. And what we end up with is we shrink down the mouse again and smooth the area where the sleeves meet. And everywhere the sleeves meet. So also let's just blend that torso a bit more. We do not want to blend the outside of the sleeves because that will give us a problem, and we don't want problems. Problems are never good. Never good. And now when we frame out, the only thing missing on his robe basically is the neck part. However, we're going to do some other things to it before we really get into it. Now, because I forgot to add in a piece for the neck, instead we're going to use the layer brush. Turn off lazy mouse. No, we're going to leave lazy mouse on for this one. And we're going to smooth out down here. And we're going to shrink this. There. And we're going to increase the size. And just to find out, okay, no, we need to make it much bigger. Not quite that big, but pretty close. No. There. Let's increase the radius. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go under the chin. Draw it out. And connect. And then we're going to shrink the mouse and smooth the areas here where it overlaps. Then we're going down to what's called slash. We're going to turn off lazy mouse. I'm going to very carefully draw the edges. Come on. Carefully draw the edges. That got smoothed over. We're going to go to subtract and we're going to dig in where it meets the neck, just to make it a more exaggerated seam. Dig in. And I can hear a lot of fireworks in the background. I don't know if y'all can hear them or not. Alright, now we're going to frame. Okay. So, Zian, are you still sticking around or did you book it too? Anyway. What we need to do now is we need to make our, I mentioned a tabard. It's not going to quite be a tabard so much as a chest piece. And let's draw on Do you mind, Fuzzball? Go. I'll give you your snuggles later. I'm busy. Sometimes these fuzzballs just are too snuggly for their own good. Okay, in case you're wondering, I'm still using the small brush for this part simply because I want to make sure I don't accidentally get the ear or part of the chin in this little neck piece. The neck piece will come back around under here. Oh, and for some of you who didn't know, I actually broke my paints back out and started doing some painting. No! No! I didn't want to do that. Anyway. We're going to bring this under, and it's going to end just below the belt. Okay. And now we're going to double check on this part. Yeah, there's a spot I missed, and there's a spot I missed. Now I'm going to make the mouse bigger so I can actually zoom in and fill in the rest of this. And I can then spot that, shrink this a little, and then go from here and basically clean off and sharpen the edges. And then I'm going to extract it at 0.025. Extract. Accept. Draw that on. Go back to the baseline, draw that, and let's turn the belt on so we can see that, nope, we don't need to really move anything. No! No, no, no! Okay. Now, before we get around, I can already see something I'm going to have to pull out with the move topological, and that's underneath the belly. It hangs a bit more free than the torso should, and we're going to pull it out. We're going to grab this and pull it out, and then we're going to shrink it and smooth it. Oh, and then we have to Dynamesh it. It's going to be Dynameshed at 256. Dynamesh. And then divide, divide, delete lower. And then scratch this entire thing, or yeah, scratch this entire thing because I just realized I forgot to go back in and solidify the back. Mistakes happen. So we delete it. Okay, we want to undo it. We go back to him, and you'll notice we have a whole lot of dots up here. These are different undo states. And this one still has our masking, and we can go in here and refill, so to speak, the part that we missed before. And just in case, get a little bit lower as it fully tucks under, and just cut that sharp. Then we're going to turn that visible again, and we're going to extract it. Let's make it 0.02. Extract, accept. Undo the masking, undo the masking. And now we select here, and with move topological, there's a couple areas. I missed this one on the previous. Pull this out a bit. And then grab here, pull out. Grab here, pull out. shrink the mouse and smooth it. And shrink the mouse even more and smooth this. Then hide subtool, open geometry, and dynamesh it at 256. The numbers for dynamesh really don't have an equivalent simply because they're not based on a measurement but based on a percentage of the size of the figure. So you can never guess, you have to judge. Okay, that's how he looks without wrinkles and without face and hands modified. And let's go to our props. Lower. Frame out. Now what we're going to do, we're going to hide everything but the props. And we're going to hide everything but the staff. Because it's time to turn this staff from just a ball into something suitably nasty. Suitably evil! And we're going to, among other things, we're going to go ahead and smooth out the base just a little. Now let's bring it out. Frame. Bum bum ba 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 ba. And 384. Dynamesh. Divide. Complete lower. Frame. Hide. Frame. And okay. Let's smooth out the base a bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a claw. No, we're going to turn it into a fist. Because I have that fist symbol on the crossbow of the archer captain. So we're going to make this a fist on a staff. It's a staff of punching.
Oi, it's magic. I hit people with it and they hurts.
Now I need these just so I can make sure I'm doing this in the right spot. Okay, now the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to flatten it into mostly a cube-ish. That's taken too long. Fortunately, there's another way. What was it? Oh yeah. We're going to, where is it? Slice rectangle. No. Oh, Control Shift. That's not what I wanted it to do. Where was it? I hate to do this to you, but it's one of those where I know I've... Oh, trim! That was it. Trim rectangle. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to mask pen. Okay. We're now going to smooth out this whole nonsense here. And over here. And you can probably hear the fireworks that are far closer than I ever expected them to be. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're going to go back to a standard brush. We're going to pull out these corners on all four. We're also going to pull out down here. We're going to smooth it over as hard as we can. This means shrinking it and blending a bit more. Now this is not going to be on par with your typical fist. It's going to be very clearly a stylized fist. No! Move it, Fuzz. And just want to make sure that we smooth all of it as much as we can. Make it as abstract and crude looking, actually. Frame out. I did this so I can make sure I know which side's the front, because we want the front to be mostly where the thumb of the fist is. So we need to make it wider. So I'm going to go ahead and move this back big and go back to move topological. And we're going to grab kind of the close near the center. We're going to drag it out. We're going to drag that up. We're going to drag Alright. We're going to move everything in a bit because we want the fingers to come out from the palm. And it sounds like Mom is watching Yankee Doodle Dandy with James Cagney. Now, we're going to inflate to create the fingers. But first we need to make the thumb, because the fingers need to end at the thumb. So, a bit here. It's going to come up. Okay, now we're going to get the slash brush and draw around the thumb. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can hear that behind me. Okay. Working on making this fist here. Okay. Now it's time to actually draw on the fingers. We're going back to inflate. And I gotta try and estimate roughly a quarter. No, we're going to make it 1. Alright, now what's going to happen is we're going to come across and down. Then we're going to get 1, 2, 3. And I need to make it bigger because that wasn't big enough. And increase the intensity. Okay, now let's reduce the intensity because now we're going to draw on those little tendons that go down the back of the hand. Well, not too much reduction. There. And then we're going to take the slash brush, we're going to make it larger and a little bit deeper. We're going to follow it along here and here. And then smooth. We're going to take this, come up to here, here, there. Okay, now when we zoom out, it's like a fist. But we need something kind of down here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add on a couple of squirrely bits. Little chunky things. We want it to look cool. Not necessarily be too primitive looking. It needs to look cool and like something that, you know, it's primitive, but at the same time something an orc might think is kind of good. Okay. So now when we make our subtools visible, let's make just the body visible. Yeah. That's an intimidating little fist staff, wouldn't you say? And thank you. Now, I break one of the cardinal rules of ZBrush quite often. I'll be honest about that. The cardinal rule is thou shalt start on low resolution and refine shapes as you go. Yeah. Alright, now what we're going to do next is we're going to add the wrinkles to this. We're also going to go ahead and smooth this area. Oh, let's smooth maximum. Smooth this area. And try and just give it a little bit of inflation just to give us some material to work with on this smoothing. The next thing we're going to do is it's time to add the wrinkles. We'll go back and do the head and the hands after we do the wrinkles. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to grab here, we're going to come up. We're going to grab here and come up. Grab here and come up. And then now we're going to go to slash. But before we slash these, we're going to smooth out the tops of them. Okay, with the slash we're going to shrink it a bit. We're going to dig in lightly. Into these wrinkles. Because these are pressure wrinkles. Wrinkles that come about because they're being caught up in the belt. And then we're going to smooth out near the top of them because they fade away as you get away from the source of pressure. And then we're going to go back to the add and we're going to make them larger, sharper. And again, this is because this helps us cloth not only rarely folds in a straight line, in a curve, it also makes it easier for us to snag these sections when it comes time to print. Or paint, rather. And yeah, that was too strong on the base. The base wrinkles were too strong. How far back do I need to go to fix that? Yeah, and there. Okay. That is part of the magic of ZBrush. It keeps you have a visible record of your history, basically. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try a slightly different take on these wrinkles. I'm going to try using a soft base for the wrinkle and then just a really strong slash on these wrinkles. Okay, and down in, and smooth it out. Then, let's, oh, way too strong. And then smooth it just a little. And then a little bit right here. Smooth it. Now let's do the same on the back. Because again, it may be tucked in, but it's still okay. And then we go to slash sub 15. And smooth out the tops. And then add at 6. Let's make it 7. and bring it down. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of a wrinkle here and a cut wrinkle here, as well as a cut wrinkle here and a little bit of a wrinkle over here. Okay, that's the top of that. Now when it comes to the wrinkles coming from down here, we're actually going to need a stronger, well, not, yes, a stronger but smaller line. And that's because, how is it, what, it's flapping that way. So I look at my shirt. Okay, that means that the lines that it's following are going to be draping this way for the wrinkles. And then we're going to take our slash, and we're actually going to first draw on the underside of these wrinkles. Because they're still affected by gravity. And then we're going to use Alt so it goes negative right below them. And that's what we get from that. So we got wrinkles on the outer chest cloth. And pardon me while I get some soda. You saw the tail. Yes, it was him. Now, we're going to do something similar with the figure. We're going to hide this because it's going to get in the way. We're going to start off with... Oh, we're in the slash, yeah. We're going to start off with the sleeves. Hide the belt. And what I'm doing is first I'm drawing the outside of these wrinkles. With the sharp brush. And you'll notice that they will not match up top. Okay, then I'm going to start off lightly and then dig in tightly behind these parts of the wrinkles. Then I'm going to go back over and pull up the outer edge again. I don't need a lot of wrinkles, the kind that would be seen in real clothing. I just need enough to insinuate what's happening. Because once you understand what's happening, the message is carried across. You don't really need a lot more. And that sleeve already looks like a sleeve hanging down. We're going to add in just a little bit more here. But we're going to turn it into, from that, into the wrinkles that would be found from basically being bent by that underarm. So we're going to pull it up here, pull up here, pull up here, and pull down, and then down again, and then cut in and a little bit of smoothing at the ends of the wrinkles, because the wrinkles kind of fade away. And as you can see, it already looks like cloth. That's one of the important things. You've got to make it look, it's like impressionistic painting. You've got to give things the impression of the material that they're supposed to be. There's a big difference, for example, in how, let go of my shirt, Fuzzbutt. No. I know you love your daddy, but no! Ralph's being a pain. Anyway, so now we go back to, I need to increase the intensity because it didn't come out well enough. I had to intensify it a lot. We come back to here. Alright, that's too strong. It's starting to tighten up like that. No. I love you, Fuzzbutt, but sometimes I swear to God. Whoop. That didn't work. Okay, bring this down here, bring this down here, and then we're going to go over this way. And then we're going to draw in our dig ins behind the wrinkles and under the wrinkles. Let's give it just a little bit of smoothing. Dag nabbit furball! He's not normally this much of a pest. I'll get my thing back. That's most of the upper torso for the robes. Does the belt? Yeah, the belt hangs over nicely. And now, further types of wrinkles. We're going to make the mouse a bit bigger for this. Alright. Oh. Smooth out the tops of them. One of the first things we got to do while I'm thinking about it is we need to add in the dig around the feet to make it quite clear that it's coming out, the feet are poking up from underneath. And then a okay, we're going to do the same around here. We're going to dig in around the feet. And then there. Now, oh, gotta make this bigger. And then we cut under. Undo the sharpness of that. That's a bit too sharp. And you frame him, and he's looking good. Sorry. I swear, this cat. Okay, let me get some soda pop. I call it soda, pop, Coke, cola, whatever. I don't care. all the names are right. And oops, I got my caps lock on. This is one of the most fun things I've ever designed. Okay, now there's 3 things left to really work on now, and that's the face, the hands, and the base. So as you can see, he's for the most part done. This is a relatively short session. Alright, let's hide those props again. We're going to go ahead, we're going to start working on the hands. Now, we don't have to do anything about the inside of the hands because it's concealed by the sphere. But what we need to do, we need to go ahead, go in here, and shrink the mouse until it's about the size of the phalanges. We're going to use the standard brush this time, not the inflate. And we're going to draw on knuckles. And the thing to remember is the ring finger and the index finger are about the same size. The middle finger is longer and the pinky is shorter. And then we blend in the space between. Since these are orcs, we can leave the knuckles mostly knuckly. And then we draw on. No, let's shrink this. We draw on the bits on the back of the hand. Again, it's not really that important, but it will change the shape and the weight of the hand. I also need to smooth out that part of the hand. Now the thumb we need to make bigger. And then we blend it in. And then we add in just 1 knuckle, because yes, the thumb has 2, but really there's only 1 that really shows. We frame out, and you can already see the difference between the rather knuckly hand that holds the orb and the hand that's holding the staff. Now, the hand that's holding the staff has an additional weakness. The inside of that joint. I really need to one of these days fix that in the rigging. This one does need inflate. And it does need to go back down there. And basically we sit here and we inflate to make sure that it's a solid piece. Okay, and now we go back to standard. And 2. And then just to make sure we place these at the right spot, we do both of them on the index finger first. And again, we make sure that the middle finger has a longer, more forward knuckles. The ring finger is roughly same as the index, and the pinky is shorter. We then blend the space between these knuckles to try and flatten out these phalanges, and at the same time reduce the knuckles just a little bit because they are too high for normal. I will say I am not done with these hands, either one of them, by a long shot. There's one last thing I have to do that can be almost as important. And then we draw these down and connect back here. And we're going to give them just a little bit of smoothing on the knuckles themselves because they're a little large. Then make the mouse a little bit bigger. Okay. Now the next thing to do is we got to use the slash brush. Set on subtract and a little bit more intense. And then what we do is we've got to exaggerate the space between the fingers. It's a lot easier on this hand because the fingers are straightened out. We don't have to follow them along a bend. One thing you'll notice as you sculpt is that you will have a tendency for your mouse to go either clockwise or counterclockwise. It has nothing to do with program, that has to do with your innate tendencies. For example, when I draw a curve, unless I'm paying very close attention, my curves tend to go counterclockwise. I've got to pay very close attention when I do something like this. No fuzz. No. No. Down. Now, we frame out, we pull out, and we see it's looking really good except for the head. The head is still looking basic. So we're going to go to inflate. We want to give him kind of an unusual variant. And we're going to shrink the intensity. No! And shrink the mouse a bit, and we're going to come in this way and now we're going to use the slash brush once again. Not quite as intense, but we're going to exaggerate, more intense actually. We're going to exaggerate the space around the eyes. We want those eyes to really be visible. And now we're going to use move topological to make them bigger. Because we want big eyes on our big old sociopathic, psychopathic shaman type. And we're going to pull up here. Cut it out! I think he thinks it's war now. Oh boy. Now we're going to the slash again, and we are going to kind of cut in. Oh, that's way too deep. We're going to cut in around the eyebrows, try and help exaggerate the emotions involved. Because we want him to be angry. And then now we're going to give him a little bit of sharpening on this line, exaggerating it. And then smooth it slightly, because we want this exaggerate where the corners of the jaw are. Yep. Now again, some of this detail, an FDM printer won't necessarily pick it up, the whole detail, but it'll pick up the impression of it. That's like, you know, it'll give us the basic shape and the body weights. Okay, so the face is starting to get there. Now the only thing we have left to do is the mouth area. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go to inflate, and we're going to reduce the intensity a bit, and we're going to increase the size of the lip, especially the size of the lip around where the tusks are. Okay, and then finally we're going to use the smooth brush on the inner mouth, because we don't want to have as much as it looks on the open mouth, because it won't print so well. Now we go back to slash, shrink it a bit. No. No, no, no. Go! Go! One way or the other, go! I can't work with you doing this! I really don't like doing that to him. I really don't like it. But when I'm trying to get something like this done, it's not a happy thing. And then I cut in. Because I want to make sure that this looks like a lip, not a hand. And then lower the intensity, lower the size, because it's time to draw in the usual grooves that the upper lip of an orc tends to have in my milieu. And then smooth it just a bit. Okay. Now, that's pretty much our shaman complete. The only thing left to do is add on the base. So what we're going to do, we're going to merge down everything. And right now we're at 1.6 million polygons. So we need to append a new subtool, and that is going to be our base. Now when we look at it, you see that the base isn't in the right spot. It's off center, and it's too high up, and there we go, delete lower. Now we go to deformation, offset X. We're going to zoom over to there, and then we're going to offset Y. And now we're going to check it. Yeah, we're going to need to offset Z. And offset X just a bit more. Frame. And that is our Orc Shaman. We're going to subtool, and we're going to merge down one last time and go to geometry, and we're going to dynamesh it at 1.024. Dynamesh. And the end result is 2.497 million polygons. But before we do anything, we're going to smooth out this area here, because we don't want it to be too crude looking, and unfortunately it would end up looking that way if we didn't do this. Okay. And there we go. Now, like I said, at this point, it's still 2.5 million polygons. That's not good. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a plugin called Decimation Master. I click this button right here, and it will reduce it to 35,000 points or so and 70,000 polygons or so. Still quite high, but now we wait and we see. Sometimes it doesn't like doing it when it's above a certain size, but it doesn't mind this time. Good. Fuzzbutt. You're just lucky I put my tablet up. You understand me, little fur purr? Yes. Computing, please wait. That's the next step. It's right behind my head. You can't see it because of where my camera is. And there's some more fireworks going off right there. And it should be going any second now to reading file, etc., etc. Do you think that tail could have gotten in my face anymore? And reading Go Z file, that's what we want. 34,965 points. 69,984 polys. So just under 7,000 polys for this fancy little Orc Shaman. It's time to go ahead and export it. So, Orc Shaman figure. And now if we zoom in, you can see that it has converted a lot of that to just a few polygons. So, this is our final printable Orc Shaman. And to give you a clue on its scale, just to see how big he is, we're going to go ahead and append another polymesh. We're going to import, let's say, one of the spearmen. And then we're going to deformation, and we're going to offset that spearman. So he ends up being just a little bit bigger than the regular troop, and a little bit meaner looking, which is good. So that was the Orc Shaman, and this little furball is Ralph. Do you mind? Ugh. Ack. Do you mind? Get your feet off the hollow of my throat. And this is Shinju. Shinju is nicely well behaved. Ralph isn't. Yes, little buddy. Anyway, it is now 9:51 p.m. We've got our figure for today sculpted. So, what I'm going to do is let me refresh the page. I do that just in case of any lag I received during rebooting, during the broadcast. I'm going to hold my hand up here, and I'm going to count from 5 to 1. And when I see my hand go to 1, I'm going to log out. So if you're watching this on YouTube or on the history, go ahead and do the whole subscribe, like nonsense that everyone else seems to care about. Otherwise, just hey, enjoy yourself. It's been nice talking with you, nice sculpting with you. And that is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this is anti-lag.